He didn't expect to be starting over at 62, but there he was, packing boxes alone, sleeping on one side of the bed, learning to cook eggs again. Divorce didn't just end a marriage, it ended a version of him he thought would last forever. For men over 60, starting over isn't about chasing youth. It's about learning to live again with quieter hopes, clearer eyes, and a heart that still beats, even if it's been broken. This isn't a motivational speech. This is truth, raw, honest, unfiltered. Here's what starting over feels like. After everything. If you've been there, or you're there now, drop a quiet comment below. I'm not done. I'm just beginning. Again, the fear of repeating the past. He's not afraid of women. He's afraid of becoming that version of himself again, the one who smiled through disappointment, who compromised so much he forgot what he wanted. He remembers how it crept in, not all at once, but slowly. One ignored boundary, one silent resentment, one "it's fine" when it wasn't. Now, every kind gesture from someone new feels like a test, not of her intentions, but of his ability to stay whole. He fears waking up years later, realizing he's gone quiet again, that he's once more walking on eggshells, shrinking himself to avoid conflict, handing over pieces of his peace in exchange for togetherness. Starting over at this age isn't about romance, it's about risk. The risk of slipping back into a version of himself that bled silently for the sake of connection. He's not cynical, he's cautious. There's a difference. Because healing taught him one thing: pain doesn't always come from bad people. Sometimes it comes from familiar patterns we forgot to break. So now, he listens to how he feels in someone's presence. Does he tense up? Does he feel free? Does he trust himself when he says, "This isn't working"? He's not looking for another love story. He's looking for a new ending. One where he doesn't lose himself, just to be loved. He's no longer willing to shrink himself. There was a time when he bit his tongue so often, it became muscle memory. He dimmed his opinions, softened his truths, and became an edited version of himself, just to keep things smooth, just to avoid the sighs, the shutdowns, the subtle punishments. But now, he doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. He doesn't justify his preferences because they're not up for negotiation. Starting over after 60 means he finally has enough clarity to know. Love isn't about fitting in, it's about being met, fully. He's no longer impressed by surface charm or compatibility on paper. He's watching how she handles silence, how she responds when he says no, how she respects the space he needs, not because he's distant, but because he's whole. He doesn't want to be easy to love if that means erasing himself to be palatable. He wants a connection that can hold all of him, his quiet mornings, his structured routines, his slow answers, and even his weariness. He's lived long enough to know that shrinking yourself to be chosen is the most painful form of abandonment. And if the price of being loved is dimming his light again, he'll choose solitude where at least he can stretch without fear, the weight of starting from zero. It's not the dating that exhausts him, it's the explaining, the retelling of old stories, the softening of past pain to avoid scaring someone off, the forced enthusiasm of getting to know each other, when really, he's just tired of summarizing a life that was never meant to be compressed into small talk. He's lived through the rise and fall of a long marriage, the long nights, the compromises, the rebuild. And now, someone new asks, so what happened? He takes a breath, decides how much truth he can share without sounding broken, and afterward, he always feels a little more exposed. Starting over at this age isn't about being afraid to love. It's about being exhausted by the emotional admin of introductions, the repetition, the resume of your soul. And yet, he knows connection still matters. But he craves a connection that doesn't require performing, that allows him to be, not present. He wants someone who doesn't rush the story, who doesn't need the highlight reel, who's willing to sit with the silence between paragraphs. Because he's not just starting from zero, he's starting from experience. And that means whoever joins his path now must walk beside a man who's done trying to earn understanding in the first 5 dates. The peace he built is sacred. There's a quiet pride in the way he folds his laundry now, not because the clothes are perfectly pressed, but because they represent something deeper: order, rhythm, calm. Things he didn't have when everything felt like emotional survival. Each item in his home is where he placed it, not where someone else left it. Each hour of his day is shaped by intention, not obligation. He used to crave companionship. Now, he craves continuity. Because peace isn't just silence, it's safety. It's waking up and not having to decode someone's mood. It's drinking coffee without holding your breath. It's living in a space where nothing, not a tone, not a sigh, not a slammed door threatens your sense of self. He's not against love. He's just protective of the life he's rebuilt. Love might add beauty, but if it risks the harmony he's fought so hard for, it's not worth the gamble. He's not afraid of sharing his space, he's afraid of losing its meaning. And that's the quiet truth no one tells you. That after heartbreak, peace becomes the most sacred thing a man owns. And once he's learned to build it alone, brick by quiet brick, he won't let anyone tear it down with drama disguised as passion. The fear of hurting someone new. He knows what it's like to be broken. To wake up wondering why someone pulled away. To question your own worth because someone didn't have the courage to speak their truth early enough. And he never wants to be the cause of that pain. Because there was a time he tried to love again too soon. She was kind, present, ready, but he wasn't. He couldn't offer consistency. His heart was still grieving, even when it smiled. So he stayed, longer than he should have, trying, hoping, but halfway in. And when it ended, it wasn't just his guilt. It was her tears, her confusion, the look of betrayal from someone who gave fully and received fragments. Since then, he's been careful. He no longer lets loneliness trick him into commitment. He no longer confuses interest with readiness. Now, when he meets someone who lights a spark, he pauses. He checks his capacity. He asks himself not just, do I like her, but, can I show up for her? Because love, at this age, isn't about chemistry. It's about emotional responsibility. And if he's not ready to give freely, fully, and consistently, he'd rather step back before promises are made, before hearts are involved. Not because he's afraid of closeness, but because he respects the cost of false hope. His definition of love has changed. He used to think love looked like pursuit, the chase, the butterflies, the big gestures, the kind of drama that made movies. Now, love looks more like rhythm, a shared silence that doesn't feel heavy, a hand on his back when words fail, someone who knows when to give space and when to stay. In the past, he equated love with urgency. Now, he equates it with ease. Because the last time he mistook chaos for passion, he lost himself in the fire. Today, love must feel like a safe home, not a rescue mission. It has to come with mutual respect, not performance. With curiosity, not control. He doesn't want to be pursued intensely for a few weeks. He wants to be understood quietly for years. He's not looking for a partner who completes him. He wants someone whole, someone who's also walked through fire and learned how to tend the embers, not reignite the storm. So when people ask, are you open to love again? He smiles and says, yes, but only the kind that feels like breathing, not gasping. Because after a certain age, the most romantic thing in the world is peace, shared. He's not lonely, he's selective. People assume he's alone because he's lonely. But he's not. He's just more intentional now. There was a time when silence felt unbearable. He used to fill it with noise, phone calls, casual dates, late-night messages just to feel seen. But now, he's learned that not all company is connection. He's been in rooms full of people and still felt unseen. He's shared a bed and still felt emotionally distant. He's made conversation and still left feeling empty. So these days, he's picky. He doesn't say yes just because someone is available. He says yes when someone is aligned. With his values, his pace, his emotional clarity, he'd rather eat dinner alone at peace than across from someone who drains him with half-truths and shallow talk. He'd rather go to bed in silence than lie awake trying to decode mixed signals. He's not rejecting love. He's rejecting chaos, confusion, and emotional debt. To the outside world, it may look like loneliness, but to him, it's sovereignty. Because when a man has finally made peace with his own presence, he no longer invites people in just to avoid being alone. He invites only those who respect the stillness he fought to create. He no longer seeks validation. In his younger years, love felt like a mirror. He looked to his partner to reflect back his worth. A good day. He felt strong. A distant response? He questioned everything. He tailored his words, adjusted his needs, and measured his self-worth by someone else's approval. But the end of his marriage and the silence that followed taught him something vital. Validation can't be outsourced. There were nights post-divorce where no one texted, no one called, and in that vacuum, he met himself. He learned how to soothe his own doubts, how to affirm his own choices, how to wake up without waiting for someone else's affection to decide if the day would be good. Now, he doesn't fish for compliments. He doesn't change his opinions to keep someone comfortable. He shows up as he is not because he thinks he's perfect, but because he's done being shaped to fit. And if someone misunderstands him, that's okay, because the man he is today doesn't need to be constantly reassured. He's not looking to be told he's enough. He knows he is. And when love comes again, if it does, it'll be a beautiful bonus, not a lifeline. He values time more than attention. He used to respond right away, answer calls even when tired. And I too, say yes to plans even when his body screamed for rest, because he didn't want to disappoint, because he feared being seen as difficult or unavailable. But now, his time is sacred, his energy, finite. After 60, every hour holds weight, every day feels earned. He no longer gives time out of guilt, only from alignment. He's not trying to keep up anymore, not with dating norms, not with constant texting, not with expectations built for younger hearts running on adrenaline and hope. He's not avoiding connection, he's curating it. He wants conversations that nourish, not perform. Plans that bring calm, not chaos. Moments that matter, not fill space. So if he takes longer to reply, if he chooses a quiet night over another dinner with a half-interested stranger, it's not because he's checked out, it's because he's checked in with himself. And for any relationship to grow now, it must honor that rhythm. Not rush it, not resent it, not demand it change. Because the man he is today doesn't need more attention. He needs more meaning. He knows the next love, if it comes, must be different. He doesn't hate love. He just won't compromise for it anymore. In the past, he fell fast, fell deep, fell hard, and what he called romance often masked a quiet erosion of self. So now, when people ask if he's open to love again, he doesn't rush to answer. He thinks, carefully, because the next love, if it comes, must meet him differently. It can't arrive wrapped in performance. It can't demand he change his rhythm, his routines, or his relationship with solitude. It can't be loud to feel real. It can't be intense to feel sincere. He no longer believes in love that demands too much too soon. He no longer confuses chemistry with compatibility or passion with peace. The next love must feel like coming home, not like surviving a storm. It must feel like two whole people, walking side by side, not one leading, one following, not one fixing, one proving. Just presence, steady, equal, mutual. He doesn't want to be saved. He doesn't want to save anyone. He wants someone who's also done the work. Someone who sees peace, not as a boring absence but a sacred offering. And if that kind of love never comes, he's okay. Because for the first time in decades, he's already living in a love story. The one between a man and the version of himself he finally came home to. Starting over after divorce at 60 isn't weakness. It's courage of the quietest kind. It's the courage to sit alone at your own kitchen table and not rush to fill the seat across from you. To walk past old regrets without picking them back up. To choose slowness in a world that says hurry and try again. He's not bitter. He's not stuck. He's aware. He knows what he lost and what he gained. He gave years, energy, and pieces of himself to a life that didn't last. And now, he gives those things back to himself gently. Peace is no longer optional. It's required. And if love comes again, it must be built with peace, not at its expense. Because after 60, there's a quiet kind of dignity that settles into a man's bones. A dignity that says, I'm not here to chase. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to be fully, calmly, and completely me. So if you're a man who knows this shift, who has traded chaos for clarity, noise for stillness, validation for self-trust, drop a quiet comment below. I'm not starting over. I'm starting again, with me. Because starting again doesn't mean starting from scratch. It means starting from wisdom. And that is a beautiful place to begin.